We're back in the shop working on the vanagon again today. We are going to work on the new intercooler I bought. It's been running a little bit hot lately, so I think the intercooler is not doing its job right. This is what I got to replace it. It's just a pretty cheap little intercooler off eBay. I'll post a link in the description of this video. And it's a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger footprint, and we should be able to fit it down there all right. There's going to be a lot of cutting and welding on this intercooler pipe. I'm also going to cut and weld up a mount for the fan on this intercooler, so it's completely sealed and any air that fan is moving is going through the intercooler. Here's the old setup. I knew from the beginning that it wasn't going to be a permanent fix, but it worked alright. Just the OEM intercooler with these tabs welded on, and I screwed that up to the firewall. I just plugged that mass airflow or boost sensor port, then epoxied that in there. And then here's the Mishimoto fan, just zip tied on, and used a little bit of aluminum tape to kind of seal it up a little bit. I don't think it did much, so I think the fan was kind of just pulling some stuff around the tape. So we're going to put the fan on this one and weld up a mount for it so it'll be like airtight and should be pulling a little bit more air through the intercooler. Here's the final product. It was a pretty easy build. I just had to weld a plate onto the front side and cut a big circle in it, and then I welded in some nuts so I could put bolts on and secure it. And then I came around this side and welded up the gaps, so you'll just be drawing everything through the intercooler, which is what we are after. I think this fan is rated for like 430 CFM, so it is flowing a lot of air through this little tiny intercooler. And now all that's left is to hook it up and see how it works. Had to weld some brackets on to bolt it in, and it'll be sitting vertical just as it is, so there'll be a lot of airflow compared to the last one, which was horizontal. I've got some pretty high hopes for this intercooler, hoping that this will solve a lot of our overheating problems. We weren't too bad, but if this gets us down 5 degrees, then I'd be ecstatic. Got the intercooler mounted, and now I'm working on the ducting. This is the intake side. I'm just going to loop it down there, and it's going to have quite a few bends in it to get down. The other side looks a little bit simpler, pretty straight shot, and then going up into the intake. Making some good progress. I got a lot of that welded up, and I got to this point and it like serpentines up and around and through the firewall, kind of a lot of angles, and I was looking at it and I realized I could just go straight back and then about 2 90-degree turns and I would be in the intercooler. So I'm gonna do that instead. So I'll have, this is the intake here, it'll go straight back and then up to the top, and this is the turbo outlet, and that'll go straight back and up to the bottom of the intercooler. So there'll be two pretty simple, straightforward intake tubes. It'll just reduce a lot of this turbulence that I would get from this. The old one wrapped around this vacuum pump, and I'm gonna need to go get it timed, so you gotta take this vacuum pump off. You'd have to disassemble the whole charge cooler system, and I didn't want to have to mess with that when the time comes, which time is here already. I have to do that before our trip, but this way it'll be nice and neat and out of the way. And here's the new turbo pipe. It's a little bit straighter and more simple than the other one. Here it is installed. Intake twisting up there into the intercooler. Alright, I got both of the turbo intercooler lines mocked up. I just went through and tacked them all together. There's going to be a lot of finish welding ahead. Alright, so I've still got a ton of work to do. I have to weld all those joints on that pipe. There's probably at least 25 joints, and it's the circumference of that 2-inch pipe. It's a little bit tricky welding that pipe since it's only 0.62 wall. It really wants to melt through, so you got to pay attention the whole time. Kind of a hassle. But anyway, once I get that all welded up, I have some new boots coming in to mount that all to the intercooler and the turbo. And once those come in, I can start focusing on some other things. While it's jacked up, I'm going to go through the transmission again and redo the CV axle output shaft seals. All those, there's like 2 seals in there I'm going to redo. Also going to top it off with fluid since it was leaking a little bit. And I also have to do some timing. The injection pump, I think, is off timing a little bit. When it idles, it's got a pretty choppy idle, and I'm not sure if it's contributing to the heat problem too. So anyway, I'm going to take that and check it out. Try and get that injection pump retimed. I have a kit coming in this weekend, but we leave on Tuesday, so it's kind of coming down to the last minute. And here they are, all finished. This is the hot side, and that's the cold side. The output of the turbo is 1.5 inches, so I have that bumping up to the 2-inch pretty quick. And then it just weaves around the engine bay, down into the bottom side of the intercooler. Then coming out the upper side is the cold pipe, and that just weaves around and into the intake. I think this is overall a better system than I had before, and it's also a little bit easier than what I was kind of going for at first. I'm really glad I stopped and thought about what I was doing before I got too far, because these came out great, and all that's left is to put them in there and see how they work. I think the intercooler fits a lot better than before. The piping definitely is hidden a lot more than before. It makes my vacuum pump much more accessible and really just cleans up the entire engine bay. You can kind of see it from over here. Here's the intercooler. Has a little bit of a tight squeeze there against the firewall, but I plan on making some ducting to force some air up there. Still waiting for those new boots, but once those come in, this will be all done. Alright, got the old seal out. What I do to get it out is drill a very small hole in it, and then I just screw that screw in and pry it out with a pry bar. They usually just pop right out, and then you can tap the new one in. Here's the new seal, and lucky for us, Volkswagen was kind of thinking ahead. Here's the axle nut socket, and it fits pretty much perfect around the new seal. So you just put that on there and give it a couple taps, and this should slide right in. Before I reassemble everything, I'll bring this fitting back over to the lathe and just polish up that surface right here. That's where the seal makes contact, and you just want it really clean. I come with 1000 grit sandpaper and just polish it until it shines. Then it'll give a good seal and we can put it back together. We just finished getting the whole transaxle back together. All the CV axles are back in, and looked really nice, cleaned up good. Filled the transaxle up with some transmission fluid, and then we went on to buttoning up the wiring for the intercooler. And now that that's all done, the van is about ready to go. I have to still get it timed, which I'm going to try and do that on Monday before we leave. I'm waiting for the cable to come in, so hopefully it comes in time. And then the other thing I have to get done is an alignment, which I have scheduled for Monday, and it's kind of basic. Just drop it off at the shop and have them fix it, and then Tuesday morning we will be hitting the road for New Mexico. So it kind of feels nice being ready for a trip. Looking forward to when this van is like really done, and it's just oil changes and vacations. Alright, that's going to do it for today. Got the van all ready for this trip. The only things left are to swap out the alternator and then get this thing aligned. The front tires are just jacked up, ride height's really high, and not sure why the ride height is so high. I'm pretty sure it's from the alignment. So I'm going to bring it to another shop and have them check it out. Hopefully they can get that squared away for the trip, because the ride quality is not great right now. I think we've been the most prepared for any trip that we've taken in any of the vans. So it's kind of nice. It's a good feeling to not have 50 things to do before we leave. Still a little bit more than I would like to do before trips, but it does give me like a glimmer of hope for when the van is done and I could just hop in this thing and go on a trip. So anyway, thanks for watching me work on this thing and get greasy. Stay tuned for the next episode where we go up to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and do a little camping up there. Just buttoning up the van now. I got the new alternator in. I also got some new boots in for the intercooler. And I did a little string line alignment on this. I think I got it pretty darn close. The front is still sitting up high, so I'm going to dig into that later, but all the wheels are aligned, so I think we're going to send it for this trip and worry about the ride height another day. I don't know what I did, but the van is running great now. Like, idling dang near perfect. I don't think I touched anything in the motor besides the intercooler. I mean, I'm very happy with how it's idling right now. I don't know what I did, so I guess I don't have to time it. I'm still gonna check the timing with that VCDS cable, but right now this thing is running great. Going for a test drive now. The suspension is about the same. The big difference right now is the turbo noise is about twice as loud. It spools up and you can hear it from a mile away. And also that fourth gear, I just got into fourth, the pull to 65 is pretty impressive. Here, we're going about 40. I mean, it's not a race car, but man, it's not slow van anymore. The temperature is about the same as before, so it's running around 200 degrees, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping this would fix it, but it didn't. The next step would be to put a lower thermostat in, along with a new water pump and timing kit. But I think that'll be a project for when we get back from this next trip. Here is what hopefully will be the last modification I have for the van. It was just modifying this fuel filler neck to accept the larger diesel pump. The largest size diesel pump for the commercial trucks is 1 3/16", which is like 1.2 inches. And that's what this will fit, so no matter where I am getting fuel, I'll be able to fill up. And the way I disassembled this was just heating the plastic up with this ring on it with a heat gun until it kind of started smoking a little bit. And then I was able to press this off and then pull this out, cutting and then taking all the burrs off. I'm not going to worry about painting it. That's just more stuff to get stuck in the fuel filter. The diesel will keep it from rusting. And then this vent hole goes the opposite side of the vent line. For some reason, the vent hose is on the bottom and the vent hole is on the top. So I don't know if it does anything, I don't know if it matters, but that's how they had it originally. So I'm going to put it back that way. There it is, all ready to go. Just a heads up, you will have to heat that thing back up to get them together. because it's a very tight fit. And the way I found was the best was just heat both the metal piece and the plastic up and just start smacking it on the ground until it goes back into place. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. We got a lot of work done on the van, and I'm pretty sure it's ready for this 1,200 mile road trip. If you guys have any questions on the stuff I was working on, just drop a comment down below or send me an email, tincupoutdoors@gmail.com, and I'll try and help you out with your projects. As you can tell, my project is still a project, and it probably always will be, but as long as I can still take it out on road trips and go camping, then that's all I really can ask for. So stay tuned for our next episode. It's going to be out in New Mexico with Smokey the Weekender.